Hello, this is Rod from Liberate, and I'm here with the team. We're having a conversation about learning and consulting and induction and onboarding and the trends that we're seeing. We've got about, between the group here, we've got about, arguably, not to make it sound old, but about 100 hours, 100 years of experience in learning and development and consulting. So we're having a bit of a fireside chat, and we thought we'd record it and share it with some other people. And Rochelle, do you want to give a sort of loop everyone in of where we're at with the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we often get asked what are, the trends that we see. Obviously, we work with a lot of clients in a lot of different industries. And I think the hot topic at the moment has been about creating amazing onboarding experiences for new employees for a multitude of reasons. So I thought it'd be great for us to have a bit of a chat about what we're observing, what we've seen work, and maybe even share some tips and tricks on how people might like to think about how they might reimagine what their induction and onboarding programs look like. So, team, what do you think is the driving force? Why do you think that there's such a focus on getting that onboarding right?
I can go.
One of the things, sorry, Ruba. We kind of need to have a stick that we hold.
The talking culture.
One of the things I just wanted to sort of jump in first with was basically, I think we're in an employees market right now. So after the pandemic, we've all gone through some pretty challenging times, and I think companies are struggling to get good employees and consistent, in terms of consistent support in terms of employees. So I think where we are now is that companies need to be able to attract good quality employees, and so they're looking at that process at the start of their onboarding and going, how are we building a culture of bringing people in and actually making them feel valued so they want to stay. Because if employees have a lot of options, then as soon as it's not an option, they'll start looking for alternatives. So and I think those first, we talk about the first sort of 30 days of employment, you're setting your culture for employees really importantly at that point. So I think that's possibly one of the reasons why inductions are now becoming so important.
I agree, Susie. It's not just even the attraction, it's retention as well.
Yeah.
How many stories do you hear of people not making it past probation? To your point, if that's the tone that you're setting and it doesn't impress them, they're not going to stay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even partway through the induction too, we've heard that people haven't realised what their jobs were, that they'll actually be doing on a day-to-day basis. So they've sort of come in, expected something, halfway through week 2 gone, oh, is this going to be my job? Oh no, that's not what I signed up for. So trying to add some context and give that sort of show the new starters what their day is going to look like early on, so they have that understanding of what it actually is that they've signed up for.
And I think after COVID in particular, a lot of companies started to work on their branding, and it wasn't just pretty marketing. It was about what they were actually providing to keep these employees and make them more enticable. In a world where people could work from home and had options available, which they probably didn't before. It was pretty much just take what was closest to home or what was kind of relevant to them. But we are also seeing a lot of, look, we had to rush to make everything online during COVID, and now we realise that's kind of crap, and we just want to rethink it and actually start looking at our induction. Because I think when they did that, they just did a lot of whole assessments online.
Yeah.
People resigning during that assessment gate. What's happening?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Particularly if you have a large suite of compliance modules you need people to do. Like, that is not what you want your first day on the job, to be sitting by yourself just clicking through e-learns. That's not a great experience. Not a great experience.
That's a great point, Ruba, in terms of the flexibility in work situations are meaning that we have to be more innovative and creative with the way we're doing learning now, because it's not just a case of convert everything that we used to do in person to online. It's actually going, well, people are working from home now, so they're working virtually. So the learning that we're coming up with needs to fit into that, and so we need to build what we used to get from collaborative learning, so in-person learning. We need to build that and build our learning to actually be able to extract that experience on an online version. And I think what we're seeing, to Ruva's point, that it was pretty crap when we just turned in-person training, we just converted it really quickly to e-learn, because that's what we had to do to keep momentum. And then over time we were like, okay, let's actually analyze this a little bit more and go, how can we make use of the virtual experience and the flexibility around being able to do this virtually, but actually generate that in-person learning experience, and also take the advantages of the online learning experience as well, because there's a lot we can do with that's actually better than making people commute to somewhere and sit in a room with everybody else. You can actually do some pretty creative things online.
It actually became a little more part-time and a little more autonomous with how they worked. So the atypical induction of 9 to 5 in that room, or even 9 to 5 looking at your computer screen, just
Yeah, that kind of school type, learning, where it's like a classroom. We have like somebody standing at the front and talking at people. Yeah. It's like, no, we're talking about adults here. We're talking about adults that need to actually be part of, the learning, and actually, sort of be thinking themselves and not be talked at. That's really important.
And
what if you? Oh, sorry, Kirsty.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's the biggest change in the inductions I've seen recently, is that changing from that push to that pull. They are becoming that sort of self-motivated, self-thinker, trying to resource. And so when they finish that induction, they are actually in a really good position where they can find the content, they can source problems, they know what they can do, rather than rely on someone or a buddy or a leader to help sort of fill those gaps that they've got.
Yeah.
Feels like we're driving towards that learning culture. We've been talking about it for a long time, and organizations have said that that's what they want. They want that more self-directed, own your development. But of late, that just feels like that is the push that's happening at the moment. And what are you seeing that's working? So we've seen lots of different examples, some short, some long, some, a few days up to a few weeks, even a couple of months. What are the kinds of innovation you're seeing being used in this type of learning that you've been impressed by?
For me, it's shifting more towards a university kind of style of format, where it's optional, it's not all mandatory, you've got some core in common, but then you have some other things that you actually take on optionally. You've got more direction with how you're taking your induction based on your role. So it's not just a clear cut, weeks 1 to 6, a massive agenda. It's actually a little more flexibility, and I'm seeing just that being really innovative. Presents a lot of challenges for us and for the business, but you're dealing with people, setting them up correctly to actually become learners and autonomous and a little more self-directed, rather than people who are just waiting to be spoon-fed by a facilitator.
Teach them to fish.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then it's also customizable to the individual. So we're not treating employees like they're cookie cutter. They're all the same, because everyone's coming with different experience levels. They're coming with different sort of backgrounds, different learning styles. So by building in that kind of flexibility in the way the learning is delivered, allows it to be adapted to the individual. And then you've got people who, you might be, everyone comes in at inductions, but if you've developed good, versatile, flexible learning at the start, well, then even existing employees who maybe need to be sort of a little bit sharpened, a little bit kind of, are struggling in certain areas, they can jump in and just, and just do that module or sit in on that collaborative session that actually is talking about, a certain area. So it doesn't mean that it has to be just, inducted new employees that do it. You can actually look at it as a performance management tool for those that are, potentially struggling a little bit in certain areas and need a little bit of support, that can, so we're not creating learning that's just, the reinventing the wheel every time we're creating learning. We're actually creating learning that can actually be utilised in lots of different ways, which is quite creative.
More aligned to a capability framework rather than just, this is the employee I want you to be on day one, which
Yeah.
never going to happen. We're seeing a lot of shifting of that. A lot of the clients are actually understanding that the person you're getting at the end of the induction still has a way to go. You don't have to dump everything about the job description on that person during induction.
Yeah, that's a big one, actually. It's that breaking it up and actually having it potentially in a phased approach of induction. So what do I need to know first up to start the job? And then what can I actually learn through doing? And if you think about it from a business perspective, that's getting much, you don't have people stuck in a room or in a, computer screen for a long period of time and being not productive. You can actually begin to, one, it's a more effective type of learning, but two, you're actually getting people on the floor and getting them actually working instead of just being kind of in a holding pen.
You'll be combating the forgetting curve at the same time. So it's application of learning, transitioning that from theoretical to applied understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it'll make your probation assessment easier because you'll be able to see sooner whether they've got the right, square peg round hole, whether they've actually got what it takes to be able to do the role faster.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a win-win.
Shift in the attrition. So typically where you would see people all drop out at a particular part of the induction, it might be week 4 or week 6. You're seeing a hell of a lot earlier. Like it's usually in week 1.
Yeah. Find out it's not for you early.
Yeah, both sides, isn't it? Right. I mean, the employer is being assessed as much as the employee is being assessed, right? It goes both ways. And having those leaders involved in that program early and feeling a part of the team, I mean, that's what it's about, right? Feeling connected. And I feel a part of this organization. This organization inspires me. I mean, that's what we're even seeing people thinking about pre-boarding. So what are the things that you can do to get people excited? And this, so you can use some great innovative tech in order to, get people thinking about and familiarizing, using sort of the 360-degree photography so I can see what my workplace is going to look like before I've even arrived. I can learn the vision, I can learn more about the company and the culture before I've even turned up and be excited about, this is somewhere that I want to be, and then start the learning from there. I think there's some great use of technology now. I think it used to be an and or, like it was one or the other. You either had in person where you got talked at or you did everything online, but now you're seeing a blend, so not just blended where some sessions are in online and some sessions, but actually bringing that tech into the classroom, which I think is super exciting to see that, it's providing a consistent experience regardless of whether you're in the room or not, but you've got that flexibility to deliver the outcomes you need in the way that suits that cohort of starters.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we did a bit of an exploratory on one of the induction programs that we've just redesigned, and we talked to some kind of new starters who'd just been kind of newly brought through induction programs, and it was amazing that these people were coming with real experience. So they were being recruited for their experience, and so they already had a lot of knowledge when they were coming in, but it's amazing how quickly they could feel quite stupid when the induction was not well structured. So, we were having people that, I was listening to them talking and going, what you're talking about, you've come from great backgrounds, and they're straight away going, I felt like an idiot. I'm like, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know who to, I don't know how to access these systems. So they can quite quickly forget all of the stuff that they're bringing to the role because they're left in that kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing mode, which, brings doubt and all of that sort of stuff. And so, in that induction that we've just looked at, it's about going, okay, how can we make sure that there's good structure around them so that they don't feel like that early on, and then they can access all the stuff that they know, because the organization had put a lot of work into recruiting people with good experience so that the induction could be quite quick, and then they'd be able to be on the go quickly, and so it's about making sure we acknowledge that experience and also take care of it so that we don't put people in a position where they're going, oh my god, I don't know anything, when actually they know a lot.
It's bringing that connection with their team leader, who will be their team leader early on in the piece, rather than just sit with the facilitator team for a couple of weeks and then go into the team desired team. So it's learning who that is, so you know you're a part of. If you've got a problem, you know who your leader is, you can have those conversations, and you then feel part of the organisation and can go from there.
Absolutely.
I
It's
agree.
those soft things that are really important. Those things that they're not technically about how I do the job, but they're the stuff about how I feel connected, how I feel part of a team, which everybody, no matter what their experience level is that's gonna be new to them when they come in. So it's about acknowledging that and building that into your induction as well, not just about what do I need to know to do the job. It's like, what do I need to be able to feel part of the team and feel
a big warm hug from the newcomer.
Yeah.
You're not alone, you're here, and we'll take you on this journey that you're about to go through.
Yeah. And when people feel safe, they can access their brains. But as soon as someone feels stressed and not safe, their brain just shuts down. And so, it's about kind of creating that safety around them so that they can actually feel comfortable to take in the information that they're being given. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, that just makes me think too, Susie, some of the inductions that we've done, there's a lot of learning to get through in not that long time. I mean, we're talking 4-6 weeks. So for a business, maybe they say that is a really long time because they're not on the floor, but there's a lot of content to cover. And one thing that we've done, Ruba, was put in time for reflection and time for thinking and time to just absorb that learning, and they can breathe and they can have, see how it fits together. It's a big puzzle piece that they're putting together. But I think that, and it's been piloted, and I think it was a really positive outcome and a great result at the end for these new inductees who had that extra time just to absorb it and let it sink in. There's a lot they've got to cover off, and if they're new to the area, it's a foreign language to them. It's really different. So they need to have that time to let it all, that learning, sink in, and give them some context. So side by side or buddying with someone in the business so they can see what their job's all about.
I think when they start to think about employee journeys at a holistic level as well, you get better outcomes. So play the long game. So this isn't about how do I just get them onto the floor as quickly as I can, but knowing, to your point about phased approach, but it's also about understanding where do they fit into the HR cycles. Is it performance review time? Is it is it professional development planning time? Where are they coming in at as well? Because there are things that they will need to know depending on what time of year it is. So having that visibility, I think of that, right, you're here, this is where you're at, this is what you need to know. And so you can spread out that cognitive load to be more just in time. I think that's really important.
One of the ways a business can really help themselves with an induction is working out those triggers between HR or their people team and IT. It's the disconnect to induct, and it's usually out of our hands before we get there. It's usually out of the learning team's hands. If they're told the wrong thing during recruitment, it's kind of like a broken shell before it actually gets to us. So it's look at the entire picture and that entire continuum. What happens before they actually get to learning? What happens? What are those triggers that this new starter is actually exposed to the company, but also exposed to the learning team and who to go to and all of that. If a business can do that, it really starts the induction well.
That's a really good point about the IT stuff. Again, we've done a lot of discovery around inductions, and it's amazing how consistent it is in terms of that people turn up on day one and don't have the IT support that they need. They don't have their logins. They don't have access to all the systems. And so
the hardware sometimes.
Exactly, the hardware. So to your point about pre-onboarding, it's making sure that all of that stuff is done before the person arrives so that when they step foot into the role, they feel like somebody's expecting them to be there and they have the tools required to do it. I think we've probably all started a job where we've turned up and nothing's been there on day one, and it just makes you feel awful that you're just like, all right, I feel very valued and very cared about, And it's like, so that sort of pre-boarding in terms of how do we engage with the learner in the new start, but also what are we doing internally ourselves to make sure that we're ready for these new starters so that they can sort of have a seamless entry into the business.
Learners hearing, a lot of the time it comes from completely different voices. The IT comes with a completely different language sometimes. It's a different email, it's completely different in tone than you would get from, say, an automated message from an LMS or from the people team. So how can you actually construct that so that it is one voice that is selling your company well and making that person feel welcome?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Bringing that human touch to it, though, even if you have automated processes, it's so important to be human.
Yes.
That's really interesting insights that you're sharing. I guess what advice have you got that you would share with some of our audience today?
I think it's possibly like to what Rochelle said is, remember we're working with humans. We're working with people. Or every time, all of the stuff that we're doing in terms of developing learning, we're thinking about inductions, we're dealing with people, and people need to feel welcomed and they need to feel safe. And so whenever you're thinking about designing the learning, keep the learner at the center of your thinking. And remember, they're a person, and they're not a brain that just takes things cognitively, and they're not just all of that in terms of we need to think about learning styles. It's about how we're talking to them as a human, and then all of the other stuff just takes care of itself, because everything else is kind of very intuitive. When we think about people as humans, which I think sometimes we get forgotten, and especially now that we're going quite virtual. So now our businesses are going quite virtual. We've got more space between, in terms of distance between each other, and often we're not even on screens. Sometimes we're just texting and messaging and all of those sorts of things. And I think we need to, even though we're bringing online portions into our learning, try and build that connection and that human connection into the learning, because that's where you'll get the real sort of bang for your buck in terms of developing learning that actually works. Yeah,
where I've seen it fall down, and the advice I would actually give is be ready to partner with the business. Don't even attempt an induction unless you're talking to all the right people and everybody senior who belongs in that position, because if you are not, it is going to be met with every kind of resistance from every angle. So make sure you are talking to the leaders, make sure you're talking to above the leaders, make sure you're talking to the people team, make sure you're talking to IT. Keep all of that open and make sure that they're aware of what you're doing. Otherwise, you're going to just hit significant blockers all the way through.
And I was going to say, give it the time it needs, like do the full analysis. Take your time to have those conversations with those key people, and then think about how you can implement the change, because it will be a change. So like you've all said, is take those people on the journey, get across to the leaders, because they're going to have to change how they're currently doing things. And we all know people are so busy, they don't like change. So it's a real change management piece as well. And you've got to get the business on board to embrace that. Therefore, then it becomes streamlined and it's a beautiful experience for the new starter. So I think time is one of the biggest keys and change that they need to consider.
Completely agree. And as you know, I'm a massive advocate of learner-centered design. So spending the time to understand that holistic picture we spoke about, where are the pain points? Don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. If you've got things that are working really well, keep them and keep doing what's working, but find where those pain points are and eliminate them. And, that's, you don't have to know everything about everything as well. To seek inspiration. You're not the first to go through this. Lots of people, and we see it all the time. So talk to other people that have walked the path before, or engage and consultants like us, people that get to see the best of the best, so that we can help give you the advice you need to. Otherwise, you're gonna make mistakes, absolutely, because you don't know what you don't know. So how can you learn from those who've already been there before you and get inspiration?
That's some really great advice, and I'm conscious of the time. Maybe we can aim to wrap up in 30 minutes, but I suppose this might be a bit of a tough one to throw to you. But is there like a tangible example of something that you've done recently that you think's really innovative, or like you mentioned, like that being, you know, human and connected? Is there an example, without giving too much detail around, that you might be able to summarize for us?
Probably one that's just top of mind is a induction redesign that we've just done, and it's obviously Kirsty's now working on actually implementing it, so she's doing the hard work now. But one of the things that we've just looked at is actually taking, so we've like literally taken a induction that is fully in person. And we've converted that to a self-paced, you know, essentially a self-paced learning. And so and the key behind this really is whenever you have a facilitator with you, there's a reason to be in the room with the facilitator and the reason to be in the room with others as well. So in terms of, it's about never having one-way communication when you are in a group situation. So whenever you're in a group situation, doesn't matter whether it's virtual or in person, it's about going, okay, let's utilize the brains that we've got together right now. It's never just one person talking. It's never a facilitator just conveying information. It's about asking questions. It's about discussion. And utilizing the experience in the room whenever you're bringing people together, and making and the way we've done that and made those sessions really useful is to do the pre-work before it. So we've got self-paced learning, which is the theoretical learning that comes in before the collaborative sessions. So there's many ways you can do it, through learner guides, through e-learns, those sorts of things, where people can actually work through the theory and then bring that theory knowledge with them into the collaborative sessions, so that when they're in there, they can ask questions, they can listen to other people's perspectives, and that can really utilize everybody's time together. And so we're not having facilitators that are spending the time delivering theory, which can be delivered in lots of other different ways, through animations, through e-learns, through scenarios that the learners work through. And that kind of the philosophy is bring people together, because there's great learning in that, but utilize the people that you've got together, and not make that one-way communication. Because when you've got, especially virtual, when you've got people together, it's very easy to switch off. It's very easy to just have the noise happening and just switch off, or be doing something like on email or doing something else to the side. We all know that kind of happens as well. So if you're keeping people engaged in discussion, it's much harder for them to disengage and do their emails or text messages on the side, which often happens.
Guilty. Be prepared before the discussion.
Yes.
Actually get the best out of it. So they're doing the self-paced, but they're also reflecting. They're also taking time to explore some of the systems in their own, so that they can come prepared, and they've actually got prepared, robust questions ready to actually test this facilitator. And it's more of a discussion rather than a typical just being talked at by a facilitator.
And the other option with that is, and it just made me think about Ruba, which is one of the ones that we were working with on the other project, was you can bring people other than or as well as a facilitator into those sessions. So, you know, when you've got discussions, there's an opportunity for senior members of teams to come in, you know, and as the sort of subject matter experts. So you've got opportunities to utilize, you know, the rest of the business within those sessions. So you don't just have to have, like, facilitators can facilitate the discussion, but you can bring experts in that can actually bring sort of a diversity of thought in that as well. And that one, it gives you the opportunity to actually develop people from within the team and get them, you know, into those situations. So you're accessing their expertise and making them feel valued for having those expertise. But you're also having an opportunity for the learners to talk to someone who actually does the job, as opposed to a facilitator who is fantastic, but they don't do the job every day. So they can actually ask those real life questions with a subject matter expert.
I love that.
As I say, I've done a similar induction where we did the theory in e-learns, and then we did a debrief, embedded the knowledge on those trickier pieces in the embedding ILT sessions post the e-learn. So again, at least the learners have that base understanding, so they feel knowledgeable to have those conversations and not shy that they're going to be, you know, everyone's going to go, oh, don't you know, that kind of thing. So they feel, you know, it's a safe place to have those conversations they feel comfortable about having them and asking those questions in there. I think that's really key to get the most out of those collaborative sessions as well.
And I agree that it respects people, different learning styles. You know, there are those that can think on their feet and there are those that need time. They need time to digest the information, and this is just a way to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love
think
that.
I've been there during inductions, just watching senior execs in videos, just talking about people and about strategy, and it's about usually the bottom dollar. It doesn't mean a hell of a lot to a new inductee. Whereas if you've prepared the learner, they're going into a collaboration session with this person, they can actually ask some really direct, succinct questions.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's really interesting conversation. I'm conscious of the time and we may need to wrap up, but I get to hear the consulting team and yourselves talking all the time about solutions and ideas and reimagining inductions, and I get to see some of them as well, and they're like mind-blowing, really awesome work. And really appreciate just learning through you guys. I'm constantly learning, and hopefully this is something we can share with some people that they'll be able to get a snapshot into some of the learnings that they can get from yourselves. Kirsty, Susie, Rochelle, and Ruba, thank you very much for sharing your experiences and insights.
Thank you.
No worries.